An information war. Alex Jones back live. There is a war on for your mind. Al Gore in 2007 and in 2009 on record, we'll show you some screenshots of these news articles, said that the Arctic, the North Pole, would be completely melted in winter by 2013. It's expanded and is the thickest in many, many decades being recorded. The Northern Hemisphere has seen record cold temperatures across the board. Temperature records have been smashed all across North America. It goes on and on and on. And Piers Corbett in the last 5 years has come on a few times a year, and we appreciate it. He's the owner and operator of Weather Action, a very powerful web presence exposing what's happening. He heads up weatheraction.com, and he's been featured on Fox News, BBC, you name it, many other news programs for accurately predicting what would happen 30, 45, 60 days in advance, and sometimes 6 months to a year ahead, dealing with the solar winds and the moon and how that affects climate. Now, the UN says that's not the case. It's your car, and you got to pay them money, and they'll save you. But they've been fully discredited, but they don't care. They're still moving forward. So he predicted record cold temperatures a year ago on this show, and then about 6 months ago on this broadcast. He's back to tell us how he was able to predict that. And then coming up in the next segment, he's going to tell us what he sees for the spring, what he sees for the summer into the fall and next year, looking into not a crystal ball, but into the heavens and that big ball of gas, that huge nuclear reactor burning in the sky that actually drives our climate. Piers, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. It's great to be on your show, Alex.
Great to have you. This is a short segment, long segment coming up. Yep. How did you predict it all as usual?
Well, we understand in a predictable way the key things the sun is going to do and how the moon will modulate the particles coming from the sun in what is called a solar wind, the rush of particles which comes at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And the Sun-Earth connection is primarily magnetic, and the moon's modulation of it is magnetic. So we can ascertain when similar Sun-Earth magnetic states happened in the past, as will take place sometime in the future. And we use the weather in the past to predict the future. So these very extreme events in Europe and in America were things that had happened in general terms in the past, and we use those as the predictors. And that includes things like this polar vortex, which is a kind of, well, media term, if you like, but that type of very cold weather has happened before in the USA.
Well, when my dad was a little boy, it was a lot colder than it even is now. But now it's going back towards being cold again.
That's right. That's right.
Are we in danger of slipping back into a mini ice age, as many people think?
We are. Yes. The big variations in the jet stream, which is this kind of guiding thing behind where the low pressure systems track. It now goes up to the north and down to the south in great big long deep waves, and this is a characteristic of mini ice ages. So it means on average the northern hemisphere is colder, with longer, colder winters, late springs, and wet summers. But in some places, sometimes it's also going to be very mild, where the jet stream is taking warm air northwards. And for example, the British Isles now is in fact in such a situation. So we've got a mild winter, whereas you've got an astoundingly cold episodes happening in many parts of the USA, but especially the north, central, and northeast parts.
Amazing. And again, you don't like to toot your horn, but you do have the reports from last year.
Well, absolutely, yes. And interestingly, of course, the warmists have got nothing to say except lie, and I do mean lie. They claim, oh yes, this is all CO2. Now, I was at a meeting last year in October in the Royal Society in London, where the IPCC, that's the United Nations Climate Committee, were reporting, to the public and scientists mainly, what's going on. And they said there's all these variations variations in the jet stream happening. We don't know why, and it doesn't follow from anything to do with our CO2. More CO2 doesn't make these wild waves in the jet stream. So I stood up and said, well, we predicted these things are going to happen some time ago. We know why it's happening. It's to do with solar-lunar effects. And that is the only way you can understand these things, certainly not by CO2.
Tell you what, stay there. It's simply incredible. And people can go to your site and see the published reports from a year ago, 6 months ago. We had him on. You heard him. He said one whopper of a freezing winter. Get ready. We're in danger of a new ice age. The InfoWars crew absolutely loves coffee because we love being awake. And I am somewhat of a connoisseur of coffee. So many times you go to a restaurant or even to a coffee shop and the coffee tastes like garbage. And in all the different coffees I've tried, my favorite is grown in the high mountains, in shade, Arabica, on the border with Guatemala in southern Mexico by the Chiapas farmers. I make sure we've done the research. I make sure it's the very best product that we can offer you when I put my name on it. And I believe, and it's my taste, so you may differ, that this is the best coffee in the world from southern Mexico. Wake Up America Patriot Blend, 100% organic, Arabica shade grown. And then we have the Immune Support 100% organic coffee infused with a special type of mushroom known to boost the immunity.
This coffee is seriously so smooth. I normally have to douse my coffee with cream and sugar and cinnamon and all kinds of tasty treats, but this, I drink this black. It is so good.
Well, that's why I like it, is that it has a kick, it has really good caffeine in it, it has a good clean wake up that lasts for a long time, doesn't give me a headache, but it's so smooth, it's so delicious. Just try it out for yourself. I'm telling you, this is my favorite coffee. We went through a lot of trouble to bring you this. Just try it, and I think you'll be hooked like we are here at InfoWars. Well, folks, find out for yourself and support the information war today. It's all available at InfoWarsLife.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139. Ladies and gentlemen, the man who continues year after year to predict the weather accurately, dealing with the sun and the cycles it's going through, is with us. And by the way, I've interviewed many other astrophysicists, scientists, meteorologists who are on record, who are on record saying the exact same thing. It's not like only Piers Corbyn is saying this. He's just very good with the mathematics to break it down for decades. As a meteorologist, as an astrophysicist at weatheraction.com. But I want to give you the floor for the next 10 minutes, sir. I know your time's important, to present to us the fraud of the warmist, how they're wanting to demonize CO2 so they can tax it while ignoring real environmental issues, and then tell us what you think's coming in the future with their movement, how we counter it when we've been proven totally accurate and right. Al Gore's been proven to be a fraud, saying polar bears can't swim, and that it's all just a power grab. And then tell us, most importantly, what's coming up now where most of our listeners are in the Northern Hemisphere, Europe, and the United States, Canada, what we can expect according to past trends with similar solar and lunar activity.
Yes, right. Okay, well, two things there. First of all, the CO2 story, or lie, and then secondly, what's happening next. Well, first of all, on the CO2 story, I mean, the reason for it is, as you said, it's a tax-collecting scam, it's social control, it's a way of creating a bubble of false value through carbon trading. And there's a lot of people riding on it. So they are prepared to tell lies in order to keep the story going. And that means, for example, that people like me just never get a look in on BBC television, even though they'll have the other side on all the time, talking nonsense. Now, they claim, basically, were claiming before that the world was warming due to CO2. Now, the world is not warming. In fact, on real data, it's cooling, and even on their fiddle data, it's not warming. It's staying flat or cooling a little bit. anymore. Instead, they talk about climate change, and now we've got all these quite considerable extremes going on. They say that extremes are caused by CO2. Now, this is a lie, and the people who put this forward know it's a lie. Because they also know, these scientists, that they cannot explain the variations in the jet stream, which are the root cause of these extremes. Whereas we can, the solar lunar theory can, and we can prove absolutely that it is due to the sun, because we can predict solar events, coronal holes, big solar flares, and when these are going to happen, and then what will follow. And one thing which follows is at times you have these warmings of the stratosphere. Now, when these warmings of the stratosphere happen, they encourage changes lower down in the troposphere, that is where the weather happens, and bigger variations in the jet stream. And that is what is happening now. We predicted some warmings of the stratosphere. They have happened, or indeed are happening as we speak. Whereas the CO2 people can explain none of this whatsoever. So they know when they say it's CO2, they are lying. And they're going to carry on lying as long as the governments allow them to and encourage them to and shovel them money in order to lie. So what can the public do about that? Well, the thing is you have to demand your politicians only listen to proven science and just say, look, the CO2 people have got no evidence. And if any politician says they have, just say to him, okay, where is it? And you'll be surprised that politicians will then shut up and they'll probably refuse to talk to you. Well, you might get some on your side. And there are, well, in America, there's more politicians sceptical or know the CO2 stories are lying and are prepared to say it than in Britain. But we do have an increasing number in Britain, and I think there will be a change at some point, but it has to be worked on.
I was about to say, just last week it came out in the news that the BBC has secret meetings with their thousands of news presenters of how to defraud the public and keep the lie going.
That's right, absolutely. See, the BBC is meant to be publicly controlled. It's meant to be open, accountable. Now, this was a lie. They had this meeting in January 2006 where they said they were calling together 28 scientific experts to establish beyond any reasonable doubt what was really going on. Actually, there were 2 scientists present, and the rest were all Greenpeace fraudsters, various people on the gravy train, assorted liars, people of whom I have absolutely zero respect. And there were 2 scientists who were on the gravy train themselves. Now, of course, that meeting wasn't discussing science, it was discussing how to lie, which is why the BBC spent huge amounts of effort, legal defences, to prevent who was at this meeting being made known. Now, the judges, to give them their credit, have now said, no, BBC can't hide these things, and the list of who was there is public. Now, I've met 3 of those people, and, it's very interesting what happened subsequent to that meeting, because one of them very interesting things was about the insurance industry in Britain. We had been predicting floods that happened in 2007, for example, and the insurance industry has spent £6 million on predicting on a flood risk map for Britain, to show when floods are most likely to happen, where they'll happen, and if they happen, i.e. who's going to be affected. So I phoned them up and said, well, that's a great map you got. Do you want to know if it's actually going to flood? And they said, no, we don't want to know. I said, what? You don't want to know? No, we don't want to know. Now, in the conversation that followed, it was basically the reason they said, well, you're on the wrong bus, Mr. Corbyn. And you think about it, the reason why they don't want to know is kind of obvious. They are defrauding the public by claiming there's going to be loads of floods. Now, there will be floods, of course, at some times. But they want people to buy insurance that they won't use. And, of course, me popping up one year saying, oh, there will be floods this year or there won't be, would mean that someone who had bought the insurance when the insurance companies knew there was going to be no floods could take them to court, you see, and argue the toss. So they don't want to hear. I
remember you were on a couple of years ago talking about the drought in the Midwest and Texas.
Yes, absolutely.
And then you predicted, due to solar activity and that the flooding would come soon. And then now we've seen some of the worst flooding on record. Again, how do you do that so accurately? And then, in the time we've got left,
Well, okay.
What's coming? What's coming?
In January, for example, that was those snowmageddons, if you like. You had 3 of those or so in December, and these super cold whacks in January. We predicted those from the careful timing of the solar lunar effects and when they happened in the past. Sometimes a number of times in the past, and then say, okay, so this message is on, and we can say when. Give or take a day or so. I mean, I suppose the super cold came a day or 2 earlier than we said, but, you know, it carried on, and it was pretty, you know, it was basically there when we said, in where we said as well. So we're pleased with that. And I've just been thinking about your people who listen to your show, and what we ought to do, I think, is we'll give free extra forecasts for the next 3 days for anyone getting USA forecasts, and we'll put on the website, this is for Alex Jones Show listeners, but of course anyone who gets on there will take advantage of it, but that doesn't matter. So for the next 3 days, we'll give people extra forecasts, so instead of buying 1, you get 2, you see. So when you pay for 1 month, you get 2 months.
Well, it's certainly worth it, and we should probably try to even get you as
weatheraction.com, yeah.
Absolutely, but in general, coming up, because you make these predictions each year on the show.
Right. Yes. What's coming up? Well, we have not yet done, actually, a detailed forecast for the USA or Britain for the coming 6 months. But we are doing it and extending the time ahead. And what is obvious is that these wild swings of the jet stream are going to continue. So it will mean another summer of dramatic contrast in the USA. So, you know, very hot, dry bits in places and breaking down in other parts to, you know, severe rain and cold bits. And similar type of contrasts in Britain, although Britain is smaller, so it you know, the variations across it might not be so large as they are across the US of A. But a characteristic of last summer, for example, or a lot of, or even this winter, was we had quite warm in the southwest USA, very warm at times, as well as being very cold in the northeast. Now, this type of conflict will continue. I'm not saying it will be that contrast exactly, but that type of thing will continue.
And that's because the jet stream is moving wildly because the sun is doing what?
Wildly down.
And the sun is the main driver. Explain that to people.
Yeah. The sun sending its particles out, charged particles, are captured by the various planets, one of them being the Earth, and they're magnetically connected to the sun. So when the magnetic connections are favorable, you get more of these particles. And the moon interrupting or not, the solar wind also, again, changes the number and effect of the particles. And these particles, they change the rate at which weather fronts operate. So when we have our R5 periods, they're called, that means red weather action period 5, level 5, it means that weather fronts are much more intense. And you can see that. In this very cold bit, as it was warming up, we warned there will be tornadoes. Now, somebody emailed in and said, what tornadoes? And of course, they'd started at the start of this period. I said, well, just wait and see. And sure enough, there were tornadoes at the end of that in various places as the warm air met the cold air, as we predicted.
Well, I mean, the big issue here is farmers going back thousands of years looked at how the sun was acting and how the moon was acting and, had lore about weather according to the sun and moon because they didn't know that the sun had basically these winds to boil it down. And then when the moon and then when the moon gets in front of the Earth, I mean, it's more complex than that, but that obviously that's one of the main drivers of climate. But you talk to a mainline meteorologist, they'll tell you the sun has nothing to do with it. I mean, that's asinine.
Yeah, well, it's mental. It's mental. It's mentally defective, frankly. You know, I mean, we ought to call the science of these so-called scientists what it is. It is mentally defective. It's cretin. It's cretinism. I mean, you know, the Vikings knew that when there was aurora, as sure as night follows day, storms will follow. And that's always the case. You have big aurora, you will have big storms, especially in the northern hemisphere.
And for those that don't know, that's when there's more radiation coming in from the sun,
yes,
causing an aurora borealis. I mean, everybody knows now that when you get a big solar flare that hits the Earth, it will produce nuclei, then you'll have a bunch of rain come out of a clear sky. It'll form clouds and you'll get rain. I mean, it's funny, the astrophysicists all know this. NASA knows this. But even their own scientists won't come out and say it. It's just ridiculous.
NASA knows it, but they won't say it. After all, who's paying them? I mean, they're on a government payroll, which is there to rob the public through, carbon taxes, subsidies to various green, dodgy operations, and so forth. So we have a lack of accountability in the state apparatus when that should be where we have accountability. And it's only when voters rise up and demand accountability from their politicians that we're going to get somewhere. I mean, you should vote out, chuck out the people that don't believe in accountability.
Very well said, sir. Well, listen, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Do we have any idea in this sun cycle? I mean, I know when you know the sun's doing something or going in a certain cycle, you can predict with 90% or more accuracy what's going to happen. But generally, the sun, we don't know, always acts the same. Yeah.
Sorry, what's happening? Yeah, we around now, this month and last month, well, the early part of this month, we've had a lot of extra solar activity, which we predicted, and it came on time. I'm very pleased with that. The next few months, though, month or two, is going to be much quieter. There'll be much less solar activity, less aurora, which often favours cold weather and less active weather fronts. So there will be some more cold blast in general. We can say without doing the detailed forecast, but we can't say for sure where. And one thing we're pretty aware of already, though, is that the Olympics in the Winter Olympics in Russia, there will be a lot of very cold air there and cold, snowy blasts. So they're not going to be troubled by mild air, which is probably good news.
What about the Olympics coming up that they're wanting to have out in the middle of the desert in the Middle East?
Well, I think that's insane by any measure. It's just complete balmy insanity. I mean, there's a reason why people don't live there. I mean, it's because it's too damn hot. So, I mean, to run Olympics there is just completely stupid. It's some money-grabbing operation.
Well, we are seeing more and more insane behavior. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Piers. All right, there he goes, the head of Weather Action, the man who predicted so much of what happened this winter. You can go back to the show last time he was on. I mean, it's amazing. It really is amazing. And like you said, the Vikings basically knew this stuff. When there's a big aurora borealis, that means they didn't know what was causing that, the northern lights. They thought it was Thor riding around on his chariot. They just knew that meant a bunch of weather was going to come the next few days because all that nuclei comes in, creates static electricity, to boil it down to layman's terms, that then allows water droplets to condense to make bigger droplets, clouds, rain, thunderstorms, snow. I mean, it's just the sun, folks. If it wasn't for the sun, the Earth would be absolute zero, no life on it. But the UN says the sun has no effect on climate. I mean, that's like saying the sun has no effect on plants growing. I mean, and like you said, it is total mental illness, ladies and gentlemen. Total mental illness where they could come out and say the world's flat and people might believe it. I want to go to Michael, who says he works at a large financial company when we come back. Then John, a veteran. Tom in Missouri, former military, wants to give his take on the state of things. And Richard in Texas, toll road worker. I want to talk to all of you. I appreciate you holding. I get a lot of callers on, and then we go to break and have a guest on, and then I get the guest off early so we can get to you. We'll do one little 6-minute segment, one more 5-minute segment. I'll try to shut up, get to all of you when we come back so that we can hear what you have to say. But then I get a great caller on earlier who was blowing the whistle with his wife working in healthcare, how they put all your data in the NSA. I actually had an article here from last year, July 21st. Move over NSA. Here comes Obamacare Big Brother database. Yeah, but that is the NSA. And the news here is it ties directly in to the NSA with the PRISM software. And that's come out. The companies use this to then interface with it. That's what they're doing. It's not, oh, PRISM spying on you. That's like saying, a car's running over you. No, someone else is driving it. The PRISM software is just the system to nexus it all in together. Don't forget, we're listener supported. We got great Southern Mexican high mountain coffee that InfoWars has put out, the best I think out there. So I have gotten a bunch of it and putting it out. Wake Up America Coffee, InfoWarsStore.com, the Patriot T-shirts, the great high quality water filters, discounted with promo code WATER. The Nascent Iodine, unlike anything, nothing like it out there. InfoWarsLife.com. I want to thank you all for your support out there. We couldn't do it without you. We'll be back. Visit InfoWars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.